Joe, did you know at times Jackson County Commissioners act as the executive, legislative, and quasi-judicial branches of government?
Wow, that probably creates a lot of rules for them to follow and a lot of responsibility on each of them.
It does, but they have a great group of volunteer citizens, staff, and department heads, as well as administration and elected officials who help them make those decisions that affect all of us.
Wouldn't it be great to hear what's going on inside their heads?
Wouldn't it, though? That's exactly what this next segment is all about. What's on the minds of your county administrator and your board of commissioners?
Hello everyone, Bill Mance with Jackson County Close-Up. We recently sat down with Commissioner Bob Strosser to have a conversation about his thoughts on being our commissioner and on the big picture of what he faces each and every day. Join me as we discuss what's on the mind of Commissioner Bob Strosser. Commissioner Strosser, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. So you have been a commissioner for how long now?
Oh, a little over a year, about a year and 3 months.
So you probably have a little bit of a unique perspective on this because of your background in law enforcement. So as you look at it as a county commissioner, and I think I'll kind of do a little education and share with everybody, when somebody gets arrested in our county, regardless of whether it's a city policeman or a sheriff, they end up in the county jail. There's only one jail.
Pretty much, unless they're cited out or, and there's a matrix in the jail because it's so crowded now to release people, and that's what we're seeing on a continual basis.
Yeah, so how hard is it to be a policeman, a police officer, knowing that we have this challenge, which is the jail's full?
The issue of there's no room at the inn. When people can be back out on the street committing more crimes before the officer has been able to finish his police report or the deputy has finished his police report, his or her police report, it's a challenge. And then in courts, what we're finding now is the failure to appear rate is about 50%. So the duplication of process and paperwork is overwhelming for the DA's office, the public defenders, the judges. That's why in an earlier conversation I said I wanted to see some of the civic leaders, including from those entities, stepping forward to articulate the need for this jail so that people really have a grasp of the kind of dilemma we're facing. And then it's up to whether they want to afford it. It is difficult. It even affects some of the facilities we have for housing of people in a less than full-on custodial facility, some of the transition places, because if they walk away, what is the penalty? Oh, they go back to court, but then they don't appear, so they issue a warrant, they come back, they go to court again, and they're released. So it's a catch and release scenario that has been going on for some time. That's an old linear facility. In other words, you have to stand in front of a cell to look in to see what's going on, versus what they call modular remote supervision kind of facility that has a centralized control room. You have less staffing needed and actually less liability claims because you're not physically escorting someone all the time. If they're in a controlled hallway, they may be directed from one place to another without physically having to touch them.
So, and I guess probably part of the reason why we're facing what we're facing is this new Jackson County that is a great place to grow a crop that's now legal called marijuana.
Yeah.
And that creates some land use issues that I know that you're facing. So what do you see down the horizon as it deals with land use, water, and marijuana?
We formed the Marijuana Advisory Committee to try and give us some common sense suggestions on what to do. And for those that think that there's this huge tax money that we're getting, it's actually not that, because the tax money is based on retail sales at present. Those are generated by the population centers, which are much larger than we are. And I may be a little off here, but I think we got about $492,000 for virtually 2 years.
Oh.
Okay, so divide that in half, and then figure out what that really might cover in any kind of staffing need that there is.
Well, just the planning department alone
the impacts on development services. The first thing I think about when you talk about development services is the overwhelming level of activity in there with the advent of legalization of marijuana. And we're not talking about whether it's legal or not legal. That's been determined by a vote of the people in this state. And federally, it's still on Schedule 1. And here, not too long back, the federal government revoked what's called the Cole Memorandum, which is the policy memo from the U.S. Attorney's Office for DEA as to what they will do in states where it's been deemed legal. There were no extra resources added to deal with the problem. So the impacts in code enforcement, the complaints have about doubled. So there's a lot of work to be done, whether it's the schedules that reflect where marijuana is, whether it's the banking laws, whether it's studies of what really is or isn't in a medical basis. And my mandate is to do what the state has deemed legal.
Well, and it's nice that you have a background in law enforcement, but also your time working with the water master and the water commission. Working with the water commission really helps you to have a great perspective on that.
Well, the water commission, run by essentially it's a separate entity within the city of Medford, but and I'm no longer affiliated with it. But in many cases, they're going to the dispensers that are offered. Some of the growers are going to the dispensers that are offered for treated finished drinking water provided by the Medford Water Commission, whether it's through the county's dispenser or whether it's through the city of Medford's own dispenser. And they're filling up these tanker trucks, and it's being used as part of the water for the grow operations. There'll come a point where we're going to have to ask, despite all the conservation measures that they've used, will we have to enhance the ability to treat more water? The same token, when I say that, the other side of the coin is the industry itself is going through changes, the marijuana industry, with supply and demand. There's an overproduction, and a lot of people are sitting there with something that might have a shelf life that's finite. So time and market issues may resolve a few of the things that we're looking at right this moment. We're getting into the growing season again. I'm sure my desk will light up again because I'm the liaison to development services. Probably 3 to 5 calls was my average per day.
Wow. Great kind of transition, because we talked about the fact that each commissioner is a liaison to different departments and also to different organizations within the community. So I'm going to have this is one of my favorite things to do, which I'm going to mention some of your liaison, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say one of your liaison assignments, the sheriff's department.
Doing better. Opened the jail basement, got the traffic unit back, they're currently at full staff, which is always kind of a chore because as soon as you get to full staff, somebody resigns or retires.
So you sit with a group of folks that's called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. Mm-hmm. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say that?
Our roadway infrastructure and how to fund it, and what's first, what's last, what's the priority of everything that we're doing. It's essentially a negotiated thing. And we all have to respect that even if we want what we want for our own entity, that there is a reasonableness that has to be attributed to how we make decisions in there and where these scarce funds go.
So tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say roads and parks.
Maintenance and fun.
Perfect.
We talked about the roads a little bit on the lowest life cycle cost, but in terms of the parks, a citizens group took care of one of our parks, Cantrell Buckley, for a long period of time. They did a great job, but it was really getting a little tougher, I think. So our Parks Department took it over, and if you would walk through there today, and I walked through, nice improvements. It's a terrific place. We even added the RV park to the expo. And the expo, of course, has its own board. Uh-huh. But that is a tremendous amenity.
So, and that's the Southern Oregon RV Park.
That is correct.
Yeah, so, and without that park being there, what are the chances of us having the country crossings?
Well, that was pretty well encumbered by country crossing when it was, when the concert was here. And I think they appreciated having it there. The convenience of it, the amenities of it, it's nicely done.
So there's a couple other parks that probably help with tourism a little bit, so that are Jackson County parks.
Some of the other parks, Immigrant, Howard Prairie, making sure that they have proper facilities. Immigrant, there are some improvements that are underway or going to be occurring with the rowing and just different other improvements to it to make it a much nicer facility.
Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say Community Justice Department.
You have both sentenced and pre-sentenced people coming through there, and it's transitional. Let's take the sentenced people who have, say, done most of their sentence in state prison. Now they're being released. They typically may not have a job, and they may not even have a place to live. So having a transitional center to let them assimilate back in and maximizes the chances of their success at release. And then we've got others who are having a tough time and dealing with the justice system and going through there, and some of them are on our work crews, and helping do constructive projects and actually, in some cases, cleaning up the roads and generating a little bit of revenue doing that. So it's a much more modern way of handling the custodial issues for modern day law enforcement.
So then they also work with the juvenile department.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Trying to help kids who have challenges in life survive it and succeed and go on to be productive citizens.
So, Commissioner Strosser, we just really appreciate you taking the time with us today. And Bill Mance, on behalf of Jackson County Close-Up, it's my hope that you know a little bit more about what it's like to be a commissioner, the issues the commissioners face on a regular basis, the job that they're doing and why they do it, and a little bit more about them as people and citizens just like you and I. So thank you from Jackson County Close-Up.